What if I told you that some of the most important events in human history, the rise and fall of empires, revolutions that reshaped nations, and financial crashes that wiped out fortunes were not driven primarily by kings, presidents, or generals, but by people whose names almost never appear in textbooks? What if behind every war, every political shift, and every economic collapse, there existed invisible networks of money pulling the strings from the shadows? We like to think history is shaped by bold leaders or the collective will of society. But what if the real force behind the world's biggest turning points wasn't public at all? What if it was private money protected by secrecy, hidden in offshore accounts, moved through obscure trusts, and transferred through networks built to disappear the moment anyone tried to follow them? Today, we are stepping behind that curtain. What follows is not conspiracy, not speculation, but documented history that has been ignored, buried, or forgotten because it fundamentally changes how we understand power. This is the story of how secret money networks changed history, from the medieval era to the digital age, and how the same patterns are repeating right now in ways that will shape the future. To understand secret money networks, we need to begin with a simple truth. Power follows money, but the most powerful money is the money that cannot be seen. Throughout ancient and medieval history, states taxed wealth, merchants kept ledgers, kings demanded tributes, and empires built bureaucracies to track resources. But the moment long-distance trade emerged, a parallel financial world began forming, one that operated outside the rules, beyond borders, and away from anyone's oversight. This parallel world had three ingredients: merchants who needed secrecy to protect their assets across dangerous routes, rulers who needed fast money without public scrutiny, and financial intermediaries who discovered how to move wealth quietly. These ingredients laid the foundation for financial shadow networks, the ancestors of offshore banking. International political funding, private trusts, dark money groups, and untraceable corporate structures. And the moment money could move across borders with less visibility, secrecy itself became a currency. The earliest major example of such a network was created by an unlikely group, the Knights Templar. While most people know the Templars as crusading warriors, they were also the world's first long-distance bankers. During the Crusades, they developed a revolutionary system that allowed travelers to deposit money in one region and withdraw it in another using coded letters, an early version of checks. Their network was trusted, secure, and most importantly, private. Kings, nobles, and merchants could store wealth with the Templars without the fear of confiscation or taxation. Their internal records were nearly impossible for outsiders to decipher. This meant that for the first time, enormous amounts of wealth could exist in a realm outside the control of the state. It made the Templars incredibly powerful, so powerful that the French king, drowning in debt, executed their leaders and seized their assets. But while the Templars were destroyed, the idea they introduced lived on. Money that escapes government oversight becomes the most valuable money of all. After the Templars came another innovation: the financial networks of Italian merchant families, especially the Medici. During the 1300s and 1400s, these families perfected techniques that allowed them to hide profits, disguise interest payments, and separate ownership from liability using early versions of shell companies. Their greatest invention was double-entry bookkeeping, which allowed complex flows of money to be masked behind clean, balanced ledgers. The Medicis used layers of front companies and affiliates to evade church bans on charging interest and to avoid taxes imposed by city-states. Even the Vatican eventually used Medici networks to hide its political spending. Once again, secrecy proved more powerful than law. And once again, authorities eventually realized they couldn't stop it, they could only join it. The next evolution occurred during the Age of Empires. The Dutch East India Company and the British East India Company weren't just trading giants. They were pioneers of offshore finance. They created subsidiaries scattered across islands, colonies, and remote ports, using local rules to avoid taxes and liabilities. These companies understood something modern corporations still rely on. When trade spans the world, wealth can always be routed to wherever the rules are weakest. They stored assets in offshore warehouses, registered ships under foreign jurisdictions, and maintained financial records far from the eyes of regulators. In some territories, their private financial networks became more powerful than the governments meant to oversee them. By the 1700s, the idea that a private corporation could run a financial empire outside state control was no longer shocking. It was normal. The 19th century introduced a new breakthrough, the legal trust. Designed to protect family wealth during inheritance disputes, trusts quickly became tools for separating owners from their assets. Wealthy families in Europe and America began using trusts to hide property, avoid taxation, and shield fortunes from public scrutiny. At the same time, U.S. states like New Jersey discovered that they could attract business by writing flexible incorporation laws. For the first time, companies could form without disclosing their owners. This was the birth of anonymous corporations and shell companies. Delaware, Nevada, and South Dakota soon competed to create the most secrecy-friendly corporate laws, while in Europe, Switzerland was perfecting the art of financial privacy. In 1934, Switzerland passed a law that made revealing a client's identity a criminal offense. Almost overnight, it became a global vault for hidden money, used by royalty, politicians, criminals, corporations, and anyone seeking secrecy. By World War II, Switzerland had become the world's most powerful keeper of secret wealth. But the real turning point came in the 1950s with the rise of the Eurodollar market. After World War II, nations, corporations, and even the Soviet Union began holding U.S. dollars in foreign banks, especially in London. These dollars were outside American jurisdiction, meaning U.S. laws did not apply. Banks could lend, borrow, and speculate with almost no restrictions. This loophole birthed a massive global shadow banking system. By the 1960s, hundreds of billions of dollars were circulating in markets that the United States could not track, tax, or regulate. This marked the moment offshore finance became more powerful than national financial systems. Soon, more than a dozen countries adopted similar models. The Cayman Islands became a haven for trusts and shell corporations. Singapore emerged as Asia's offshore hub. Luxembourg, Bermuda, and Jersey built industries around anonymous structures. With globalization accelerating, multinational corporations discovered they could manipulate their tax obligations by shifting profits across these jurisdictions. Companies like Apple, Nike, and Exxon eventually built enormous webs of subsidiaries to route revenue through low-tax regions. This wasn't illegal, it was genius. But it fundamentally hollowed out the tax bases of entire nations. Meanwhile, politics was entering the shadows as well. As campaign finance laws evolved in the United States, donors increasingly used nonprofits, trusts, and shell companies to disguise political contributions. By 2010, with the Citizens United ruling, unlimited money began pouring into political campaigns through opaque channels known as dark money. Other countries experienced similar trends. European politics saw the rise of oligarch-funded networks. Asia saw wealthy families channel money through trade companies. Africa saw political machines financed through mineral deals routed offshore. Latin American elites used anonymous corporations in Panama and the Caribbean to fund political operations. Across the world, secret financial networks began shaping public policy from behind the scenes. Hidden money has not just influenced politics, it has destabilized economies. The 1929 crash was fueled by speculative trusts and hidden market manipulations. The 2008 financial crisis was driven by banks creating trillions of dollars in hidden leverage through off-balance sheet vehicles and complex derivatives. Many major banks had leveraged themselves more than 30 times their capital reserves, a level of risk that would have been impossible if regulators had seen the full picture. When that hidden leverage collapsed, so did the global economy. Then came the Panama Papers in 2016 and the Pandora Papers in 2021, revealing that world leaders, billionaires, corporations, and criminals all used offshore networks to hide money. By the early 2020s, countries were losing nearly $1 trillion per year in combined corporate avoidance and private offshore wealth leakage. The scale of this hidden financial world was staggering. Governments have attempted to regulate secret money for more than a century, but every effort failed for the same reasons. The people writing the laws often benefit from the loopholes. Every time a country imposes restrictions, another country loosens theirs to attract fleeing capital. And technology evolves faster than regulators can respond. Blockchain anonymity, AI-generated shell company structures, layered digital transactions, and multi-jurisdictional trust arrangements have made transparency nearly impossible. Most importantly, the system has grown too large to shut down. According to many estimates, over $40 trillion is now hidden in offshore accounts, trusts, and shell companies. If governments were to enforce full transparency overnight, the shock to global markets could be more severe than the 2008 financial crisis. So instead, the system continues because no one is powerful enough to stop it and too many rely on it. The patterns of the past are repeating today, just with new technology. Crypto networks allow billions to move through decentralized wallets without identity checks. AI makes it easy to generate complex corporate structures that no regulator can untangle. Sovereign wealth funds create layers of state-run financial networks that operate globally with limited oversight. Tech companies run their own payment systems, currencies, and data-driven financial ecosystems, making them quasi-governments. Private equity and hedge funds move trillions through opaque structures that do not publicly disclose investors, risks, or internal transfers. Every modern shadow network echoes a historical predecessor. Crypto functions much like Templar banking, trust-based and borderless. Big tech resembles colonial corporations, powerful, global, and lightly regulated. Offshore trusts mirror medieval noble estates designed to protect wealth from rulers. Eurodollar markets mirror early Italian banking. Dark money networks resemble the political machines of the 19th century. History is not repeating, it is scaling. There are three major takeaways from this story. First, hidden money is not a side effect of history. It is one of the engines of history. Wars, revolutions, political campaigns, and economic collapses have all been influenced directly or indirectly by financial networks that most people never see. Second, every attempt to regulate secret money has produced a smarter, more evasive secret network. Crackdowns create innovation. Regulations create workarounds. Offshore systems adapt faster than governments. And third, despite the illusion of transparency in the digital age, we are living in the most financially opaque era in human history. The more digital and global money becomes, the easier it becomes to hide. The real danger is not that secret money exists, it always has. The real danger is that our world now depends on it. Political systems rely on dark money. Corporations rely on offshore structures. Global markets rely on unregulated capital flows. And national security relies on financial networks that few people understand and even fewer can control. As global crises grow from inflation and recession risks to geopolitical tensions and technological disruptions, these hidden networks will determine who rises, who falls, and who shapes the next century. The question we are left with is unsettling. Are we witnessing the collapse of the old financial order or the birth of something even more secretive? Only time will tell. Until then, the best defense we have is awareness. If this deep dive helped you see the hidden architecture behind world events, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. Because the more people understand the hidden forces shaping our world, the harder it becomes for those forces to stay hidden. And until next time, stay curious and stay aware.